Shabbat Shalom. Ritual purity and ritual impurity, Tahara and Tumah respectively, are two critical themes, especially in the biblical books of Leviticus and Numbers and in the writings of the prophet Ezekiel. When the temple stood in Jerusalem and God was worshipped with sacrifices, individuals who became ritually impure could not enter the temple precincts, let alone offer a sacrifice or eat of the holy foods that had been prepared in the temple. With the destruction of the temple nearly 2,000 years ago, only a few vestiges of the laws of ritual purity and impurity remained operative in the post-temple period. Key among those laws were the laws of Nida, that required sexual abstinence during a woman's menstrual cycle. Today, the custom of people symbolically washing their hands after attending a funeral or visiting a grave goes back to a time when people immersed in a mikveh after coming in contact with the dead. The custom of washing our hands and reciting the blessing Al Netilat Yadayim before partaking of a meal that includes bread also goes back to a time when pious Jews would eat all of their foods in a state of ritual purity, not just the foods that were prepared in the temple, but literally all their foods. And so today, as a reminder of the fact that these pious people would immerse in a mikveh before each and every meal, we symbolically wash our hands, pouring water over each of them. This week, our double parsha, Tazria and Metzora, is devoted entirely to the theme of ritual impurity, how it's contacted, and how it can be reversed. The primary carrier of Tumah, or ritual impurity, is a dead human body. But this source of Tumah is not the subject of this week's parsha. Instead, our parsha deals with a second, very common, albeit less potent, source of Tumah, namely bodily emissions, such as menstrual blood and afterbirth, after giving birth to a baby, a host of skin conditions commonly linked under the name tzarat, which is typically called leprosy, pus, semen, and gonorrheal emissions. The Torah deals with a diagnosis of these various sources of Tumah by the Kohen, with the exclusion and the withdrawal of the individual from contact with the society and with the community. It deals with a requisite waiting period after the source of Tumah disappears, immersion in a mikveh, and reinstatement into the community by bringing a prescribed sacrifice. All this obsession with ritual purity and impurity, and how one's status changes from purity to impurity and back again, seems a trifle obsolete to us today. It's hard, frankly, to discern a spiritual message that is applicable to us today. But underlying these obscure procedures, there is indeed a spiritual message. The community that we seek to engender, and ideally the community to which we would like to belong, ought to be one whose inner values and outer behavior correspond. We admire purity of motivation, purity of speech, purity of behavior, and we strive for such behavior even if we are not always able to achieve it or get it. Perhaps then it should come as no surprise that the rabbis of the Talmud, long after the temple had disappeared, equated tzarat, that skin disease, with gossip, tale-bearing, and all forms of malicious speech. How do you contact ritual impurity, the rabbi said? You contact ritual impurity by gossiping, bearing tales, and speaking maliciously of others. The rabbis of the Talmud did not have to worry about ritual purity and about sacrifice. But they did know one thing, that the same lips and the same tongue that praise God, that bless God, and petition God need themselves to be free from pernicious gossip and malicious speech. That's the spiritual lesson of Tazria Metzora. May our speech be free from gossip, and let us say Shabbat Shalom.